Justin. What rips at America today, the fabric of America today, is when you have households that have $1.2 million of investable assets that are underserved, the most underserved demographic, especially when it comes to this subject matter. If you can fix that for them, if you can deliver what we call the 3 E's, educate, enlighten, and empower them, give them the access that they have never had before through that network of insurance agents that we love to help out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In the IMO space. That is the differentiator. And that is how I started out in the first place on fixing the household's solution on why do estate plans fail.
Welcome to Beyond the IMO, where financial industry leaders will challenge your perspective and offer strategies to help you thrive in your independence. Here's your host, Justin Woodbury.
Welcome back to Beyond the IMO. This is episode 2 of a 3-part series highlighting vendors that fit what my definition of turnkey is. So from start to finish, from the time you say, I want to do this program, till you're sitting in front of your client or your prospect, to maybe even after the sale, everything is done for you, almost. Also, there's specific training that is done to set you up for success, and it's all provided by that vendor who does everything for you from start to finish. So here's an example of what I'm not talking about. Let's say you do a dinner seminar, a targeted direct mail dinner seminar. You have to figure out what mail house you can use, and there's several of them out there. You have to find your own venue. You have to choose your own mailer. You have to pick your demographics and play around with those. You have to choose your presentation. There's a lot of great presentations out there as well. The IMO gives you the tools to be successful, but you're working with at least 3 different companies. If you think of the mail house, the IMO, the venue that you choose, and it's kind of just piecemeal together. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, I just flew back from being a special speaker at a 2-night targeted direct mail dinner seminar for an advisor. And over those 2 nights, we booked a little over 90% of the room. And this advisor, their first 3 clients that they met with, 1, 2, 3, right in a row, had over $30 million in their portfolio. Of course, that's what everyone loves to tell you. What people don't like to tell you is the next 5 clients, prospects, meetings, either called, canceled, or no-showed. But regardless, this advisor is going to have a huge return on investments from their seminars. So I'm not saying those aren't good, but not every advisor wants to do targeted direct mail dinner seminars for whatever reason, but they might still want in-person events. So this 3-part series highlights the companies who offer those types of alternatives to dinner seminars, but they also require training for their program so that the advisor is set up for the best possible success. And it's all included, from filling a room or providing a qualified prospect, to the presentation itself, to the materials, to the sale, and even after the sale, these companies provide support. So my guests in this episode are Carter Wilcoxon, founder of Epic Services, and Rosalie Perkins, Epic's Chief Marketing Officer. Epic is a comprehensive estate planning company that fills the room sometimes with triple-digit numbers. They provide the training, they provide the resources for a powerful presentation, and they boast an 85% average conversion rate for their advisors who go through what they call their Epic University, or their training that they provide to set the advisor up for success. A quick reminder before we get into this episode, there are IMOs, and I never mention specific names, but there are IMOs that work with advisors where the advisor doesn't use the IMO the way the IMO was meant to be used. In other words, they're not plugged into the marketing that their IMO provides. They don't have the website. They don't have the radio. They don't do any of that. They do their own marketing, such as Epic or ProFeds that I talked about last week. So they use an outside vendor. They're not using what the IMO is providing. So the IMO takes that budget that they would normally spend on that advisor and give it back to the advisor and say, hey, here's what we would have spent on you. Take it, and then you can pay for your own marketing. So make sure you ask your IMO if they have that kind of a program, because it could pay for this episode that we're going to be talking about, Epic, or any of these other ones that we've talked about, it could pay for that entire year because you're not using them the way they're meant to be used. Now, the key is you have to be doing something on your own. You can't be plugged into all that your IMO has to offer and then ask them to pay for it as well, if that makes sense. So just a reminder as we're talking about vendors that provide independent services. You're listening to Beyond the IMO, and here's my conversation with Epic Services.
So I know when we talked, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but when we were talking, there's at one point, I was asking questions, and then at one point I stopped asking questions because I wanted to save them for the podcast. And I don't know if I said it out loud or if I just thought it, but I just stopped asking questions about what you do and more about like Epic, because I had a ton of them. So I didn't even write them down because I want to go into this learning about it for the first time. So can you just talk a little bit about how you got started in the industry, Carter, and about Epic, why you created Epic, and talk a little bit more about it, and we'll just springboard from there.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Justin, we really appreciate you having us on here today. So
yeah, appreciate you being on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've been in that IMO, FMO, BGA space for the better part of 2 decades. I started out kind of like most of us in the industry, glorified telemarketer, right? Smiling and dialing. And I worked for a company. I don't know if we can name names, but I'd like to give credit where credit's due, because
Go ahead.
I got a lot of industry knowledge from working for what was called Sure West Financial Group at the time. It's now called Quantum.
Yep.
I believe actually recently acquired by one of the aggregators that's out there. Anyway, so, I learned about the financial services or IMO space by accident. A lot of people, I don't know if they necessarily go to college, which I never went to college, but I don't think anybody, especially 20 plus years ago, when that IMO internal wholesaler's position was starting to form and take shape, it's not like that's something that they were, seeking to do. What do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be an internal wholesaler for an IMO. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I stumbled upon it. Literally, the co-founder of the Nexus Group also owned the IMO, Ron Schertz. I was his caddy at a private club called Whisperock.
Okay.
And I caddied for the guy for 2.5 years. No clue what he did. Anyway, long story short, I end up working for him at Sure West Financial Group at the behest of my wife. And it was because I was his caddy at Whisperock. Anytime he played, I was his caddy. And I did that again, like I said, for 2.5 years. Well, I also used to be a national trainer for P.F. Chang's. So I bartended at night at P.F. Chang's. I caddied during the day at Whisperock. And I come home one day, not having to work this night. And, I'm in my early 30s. We're new family. My daughter, newborn, 18 months old maybe, now works for me full time, by the way, ironically enough. She's 22. So my wife says, well, why don't you just ask Ron for a job? And I'm like, well, how do you ask a guy who you kind of work for already? How do you ask him for a job? And again, I had no college degree. I knew he owned his own business. I didn't know what kind of business, like I said before. So anyway, a buddy of mine gives me an idea on how to ask him for a job. So I call him up and I said, hey, Ron, I said, I'm calling because I know you own your own business and I'm thinking about getting into corporate America. Where would be a good place for me to start?
Nice.
Right. And I just shut up. I just waited for him to say something. So he fairly quickly said, now this was meaningful back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
2003. He goes, do you have an email address? I did. I had a Yahoo email address, right? So
yeah,
I have an address. He goes, I'm going to send you something. When you do this, do not be distracted and do not have anybody else in the room. So he sent me what's called the predictive index, PI for short. It's just a personality test. Now, mind you, I've caddied for this guy. He knows my work ethic. He knows I'm, working 14 to 16 hour days, 4 to 5 days a week, burning it from both ends, as they say.
And Carter, real quick, would he request you when he went golfing? Is that why you were always his caddy? Or
100% of the time. Every time he caddied, I was his guy.
Wow.
Right? Now that's a whole nother episode to talk about specifically that whole story, which is really, really cool. Yeah. I tell people you'll read it in the book one day.
Nice.
But anyway, I end up going to him and taking this predictive index. He meets me for lunch the next day. And again, I have no idea what he does, but he goes, Carter, it looks like you're a good fit for us. We got the predictive index score back. Why don't you come down to the office next week and see if we're a good fit for you? So I go down to his office the next week. I walk in, talk to him. He's got this beautiful, huge glass encased office, like the size of my apartment. It's so big, right? I go in, I sit down, and he takes me back to the bullpen. Now, he had just hired like 3 new guys. In fact, one of them still works for him to this day. And I sit back there for 20, 30 minutes. But it didn't take me long to just be like, oh, well, this is just a telemarketing job. I've done this before. I can do this, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, as the story goes, this was in September, October, which is still like the summer here in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. And he says to me after I go back into his office, I'm like, hey, I think I got the idea. I think I got the gist of it and everything. And, what are the next steps? So he goes, well, we want to hire somebody else to go through training with you. I was like, okay, cool. I don't actually start working for him, Justin, until the following May.
Okay. Wow.
Now, if you understand the golf season, you'll figure this out real quick. The golf season is from October to May. He didn't want to lose his caddy for the season. Now, he may or may not remember this. He may or may not agree to that. But that's my story, and I'm sticking
to it.
Yeah. So anyway, I end up, working for him. And this was pre-Annexus. In fact, for your listeners that understand the IMO world, he started the Annexus Group, co-founder with his partner, Don Dady, who worked as an actuary at Legacy Marketing Group. He ended up coming out and working for Ron, being the co-founder of that. But before they launched, the name of the company was actually called the Alliance Group. Mm-hmm. But the Alliance Group didn't like that much. So they ended up changing their name to the everybody knows them now as the Annexus Group.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up in this space, was literally becoming his caddy whenever I was just trying to make ends meet for my young family. And I had no idea what this industry was whatsoever. And the only reason I got his bag is because the guy in front of me didn't show up that day. I was next on the list.
Wow.
So
that's a cool story. And that's interesting too, Carter, because I got my start in a similar way. I was the handyman for the owner of the IMO I worked for. And there was an opening one day, and it's a total another story. It is in my book, actually. I wrote a book, and that story's in it. But that's interesting. I didn't know that's how you got your start. So that was around 2003.
Yeah. And the Annexus Group products rolled out. The very first one, the BPA is what they called it, March of 2006. So I started working for them in 2003, 2004, somewhere right in that range.
So fast forward to a couple of years ago when you started Epic. What made you get out of that IMO space and go off on your own?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So I started in 2014 my own IMO, right? I had had some fairly good success. In fact, when I left SureWest, as it was called back then, Quantum now, in 2000 and I want to say 11, 12-ish, I left because I had formed a relationship with a very successful estate planning practice in Covington, Louisiana. And she wanted me to fly out there, again, providential. Her and I shared a birthday. We were both born January 2nd.
Crazy.
So she had her insurance license. And what she wanted me to do was come out, fly out there, and meet with her already existing clients. And we would incorporate risk and tax mitigation strategies, i.e. IUL and index annuities, right? Mm-hmm. And we would just split the commission 50-50 but with her clients. So I would literally fly out to her office once a month for an entire week, and she would put in 2-hour windows for 5 straight days her clients, and we would incorporate life insurance and annuities into their already existing clients' portfolios.
Wow.
And I thought, man, if I could replicate this model one day, right? That would be amazing. And it was providential. She was insurance licensed. I'm slinging it, right? I called her up one day, and we just became fast friends. Again, we shared a birthday, so that had a lot to do with it.
Sure.
Anyway, so what I recognized this was pre-Google Meet. This is pre-Zoom.
Yeah.
all these, virtual meeting rooms that we have now available to us. So it was the sales process took a little bit longer because I would meet with all these clients through the week, and then I would call. Well, remember, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, if you look on page 6 of the illustration, if you look at and so it was tougher to close the deal.
Sure.
Now, if I'd have had that model back then, I don't know if I would have ever started Epic, because I could just be like, let me share my screen with you. Let me pull this up, right? Because I already had that relationship.
Right.
Okay, so that was what gave me insight. That's what gave me inroads into what we now know as Epic. But I ended up in 2014 starting my own IMO called CSI Financial Group. And what I was trying to do at that time, as you know already, it's a very competitive space,
Yep.
right? We're all after the same advisors. We're all after the same clients.
Right.
But that idea always stuck with me. So one thing led to another. I found a way to start driving business to CSI Financial Group, recruiting advisors to our model that was really sort of based around what Epic is today. Then in 2020, we actually started Epic Services Company to become that feeder to our organization. It's an offshoot, right? You've got Epic over here, does all the estate planning stuff, the marketing, the branding, all of those things. And then you have CSI, which is the IMO that the advisors put their contracts through. We get the override from it. So that's how I built CSI Financial Group.
Okay.
Well, it became so successful that I started thinking to myself, well, why do I want to keep this just to myself? So about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, and Rosalie, I'm going to let her chime in here in just a second on her being our first employee.
Nice.
At Epic Services Company. I decided to exit and divest from CSI because I wanted to get beyond the IMO.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to share my playbook, the winning playbook, with other independent distribution channel partners. So now the target for us is taking what was very successful and giving them a differentiator, something that they could actually recruit to retain those ideal advisors, so they weren't just renting them, right? It wasn't just products that they were slinging, right? They wanted to provide a solution around the number one challenge, and you know this, Justin, as well as anybody. The number one challenge for independent insurance agents in this space is client acquisition.
Right.
So we built an entire infrastructure, an ecosystem that was a successful model that we can now take to other independent distribution channel partners and give them that playbook that they can now be able to recruit to.
And it's not like as an owner or part owner, whatever you were with CSI, it's not like you could go around to other advisors that were with other IMOs without coming across as a threat, right? Because there's no IMO out there that's going to let their advisors have access to a company that's owned by another IMO. So am I understanding it correctly? You're like, I want to be able to provide this to any advisor. I don't want to be a threat. Not that you were, but you can't help being perceived by like that. So I want to just go off on my own and do just the Epic thing and walk away from the IMO space.
And that's exactly what I came, the old saying, you can't serve two masters, right?
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't serve both masters. And I know a lot of the players in the industry, and perceived or not,
right?
Which I was perceived as competition.
Right.
I wanted to stop being competition and be a complement. So yes, that's why I exited. I decided to go out this direction, and we got a little bit of capital in January of last year. And I was like, man, you know what I really, really need is I need to stop doing everything in this company. I need to start being HR. I need to stop being sales, marketing. I need to stop doing literally everything, videography, you name it. I was literally doing everything to keep this company up and running. We had just enough revenue, just enough capital to keep going. And I had just secured a $50,000 investor into my company in January. And I want to bring in Rosalie Perkins because I want her to share her story about how her and I got connected as her being our first official employee for Epic Services Company last year.
Awesome.
Yeah, happy to do that. Thanks, Carter. I will say when you mentioned the first official employee, the infrastructure and behind the scenes team, was already been built with Epic. But Carter and I, we knew each other for a couple of years before I came over to Epic, due to me heading up partnerships at an advisor marketing company. So that's how I got into the industry. Not as providential, I don't think. I guess it is because I'm here today, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had worked together on a few different projects, and I always remember taking the notes and going like, okay, CSI, Epic does this, CSI does this, because as somebody who manages my partners, I want to make sure that I really understand their business
Yeah.
model. So, fast forward a couple years back, let's see, late December, I believe, of 2024, I was stepping away from my first role in financial services. I came from marketing and sales background, and that's how I got into financial services, was working for an advisor marketing company. So that was really neat. And yes, I was stepping away. Carter, I put a post out on LinkedIn. Let me reach out to my network and let them know that I'm looking for my next opportunity. Carter was the first person to message me from that post, and he just said, "Hey, before the grass grows under your feet, I want to have a conversation with you." So we had that first conversation. I said, "Hey, this, it all looks great. Please give me some time. I want to take some time to make, the strategic decision and my next step and my next role." And he said, "That's fine. I'll continue to send you more information to check out along the way." And I think we spoke at least 2, if not 3 times within the next month of me reviewing something and going, "Okay, this looks really neat. Let me ask questions. Okay, that looks really cool. Let me ask some questions." And yeah, back in March, so we are almost to a full year in March.
Wow.
I said, "Hey, all right, I'm ready to go. Let's strap up."
I'm curious, did you put, because you can have that banner open to work, I think, on your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
Did you put that on your LinkedIn profile, or did you, like, while you were working, or did you, how was the progression there? Like, how did Carter know to reach out and say, hey, before you consider opportunities?
I did not use the banner. I just put a post out saying, "Hey, I'm looking for my next opportunity. I want to stay in this industry." Yeah, I really fell in love with the industry. I remember even my first month of entering, I Googled financial industry for dummies. There isn't one, so there's a business opportunity for somebody, but it was so much to take in. And yeah, it was just a post that I put on LinkedIn, really leveraging my network and the relationships that I had built up over the last few years. And I wanted to see what could come out of that. And there were actually quite a few opportunities on the table. And this, I felt like Epic was going to be the right step, and it was the right home. And I mean, there's no question about it.
That's cool. I only ask about the LinkedIn banner because I have a good friend that is still working, but put open to work because he hates his job. I'm like, the people you're connected with on LinkedIn, your bosses and managers can see that. He's like, I don't care. So I just was wondering if everyone was that bold or stupid. I don't know, but
I did post within the first hour or two of officially leaving the last.
Yeah.
I was ready.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Well, so here's the backstory about how that happened and why I was so quick to act. As Rosalie mentioned earlier, she was in charge of my account for enterprise and everything, and I had met the team lead. Shout out to Diana Cabrices right now, who has a phenomenal consulting company. Her, Michael Guido, and Rosalie Perkins were in charge of that affiliate partnership that I had built out with them. Well, Diana leaves. I'm too early stage. I told her I wanted to hire her, but I knew I couldn't afford her.
Right.
And where she was going, and she was new. And the last thing I wanted to do was, as she's pursuing something new, for her to come in to me, and I can't even, pay the bills for her. And then Michael Guido ends up leaving, and I was like, try to do something with him. Again, going back to Providential. We call it stacking the Providential deck because it happens for Epic all the time. In my life, especially all the time. I had just secured just enough capital. In the beginning of the year, she writes this post, and I was determined, Justin. I'm like, third time is the charm. She is not going to be one of those 3 people. I didn't have the right time for the first 2, and this is 100% going to happen. That's why I reached out to her immediately. As soon as I saw the post, direct message her. I'm like, let's not let that grass grow underneath your feet. Let's talk immediately. I think we talked the next day.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So everyone's wondering, maybe not everyone, because people know who you guys are, but what does Epic do? What makes Epic? I can say in my own words why I chose to, like, we agreed to do this podcast, even though I get hit up all the time to do podcasts, but Epic is different. And I like different. I like outside of the box. What is Epic and why is it different?
Rosalie, I'm going to let you answer that question because you have now been a year inside of my head, pulling things out, understanding the method to the madness. So I'm going to let you give your perspective here, and then maybe I'll tie in some things as well. But I think it's more meaningful for someone who's been embodying, the entire ecosystem that I've built, the purpose and the method behind the madness. I really want to have Rosalie have this opportunity to kind of share from her perspective as someone who has been basically a full year inside of now my brain, if you will.
Nice.
Okay. Oh boy, loaded question. I would have liked to piggyback off of you, Carter, but I'm going to go for it. For me, it's because Carter started Epic with the idea in mind, and I'd say the experience of what advisors are really looking for and what organizations that support advisors are really looking for. And he mentioned it already, client acquisition. And I heard it all the time too. The first two things were client acquisition and client retention. And you can tell through the systems of what's been put into place with Epic that those questions have always been at the heart of building what we've built. We're different because when you look at solutions out there for advisors who are looking to fill the funnel, right? Marketing, I need to fill the funnel. There's a gap that happens after that I don't think is brought up enough, and that's the conversion. Because you can fill the pipeline all day long, but if you don't have a way to get those prospects through the door, turn them into clients, you're still stuck in the water. You're in the same position no matter how full that pipeline is. So Epic, it created not only a way to fill the top of the funnel, but also convert. And that's something you don't really see. You don't see at all out there. That was one of the questions I continued to get in advisor marketing. Hey, I've got all these great prospects. What do I do now? And you turn back to them and you go, well, you insert your sales process. Or you reach out to an organization that may support you, IMO, BD, and ask them, what their sales process is for these prospects. And they typically, again, it's not a strong conversion. It's not a strong conversation. It's a product conversation. Mm-hmm. What Epic has done is it's opened the door to an emotional conversation that not only pulls those prospects over the line into clients, but now you have those clients in perpetuity. They trust these advisors, and there's no better opportunity or time to then convert those now existing clients into additional product sales, product opportunities, conversations. And that's what keeps me fired up every single day, is being able to answer that question just like that. Because what I hear from our advisors every single day is thank you. I never want to go back to how I was chasing new clients before Epic. And we'll get into the details, of course, of what we do more. But I'd say high level 10,000 foot view, that's what makes us different right there.
Well, and that's I'm glad. Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly what attracted me about the conversation we had, because there are a lot, and I believe that any lead generation program that is done consistently and frequently can work. I also agree that a lot of them are standalone lead generation type programs that put butts in seats, right, for like a in-person event, or get somebody to pick up the phone and call, but that's where it stops. It's like once we've provided that lead, once we've gotten the person in the seat, once we've facilitated that phone call, our job is done, and it's up to you to go from there. And you guys, it sounded like from what we talked, and that's about the time where I was like, I don't want to ask any more questions. I'll save it for the podcast. But it sounds like what you guys are doing is you're hand-holding from the moment of the top, from the top of the funnel all the way down through the end.
And beyond, honestly, because even after they're the client, again, coming from Carter and understanding what these advisors really want, it's transitioning into additional sales. So it hits all three pillars.
That's awesome. So what is it? So again, around the time where I stopped asking questions, I know it's estate planning.
Yeah, so I'll just jump in, and that's, by the way, Rosalie, that was perfect.
That was awesome, yeah.
The listener, the ability to kind of sort of internalize what you're saying at that high level, right? 10,000 foot view high level, but more specifically, the number one draw right now. Actually, I'm going to take a step back. When I first started going down this path, I already gave that backstory about how I saw the connection and honestly the disconnection between estate planning and financial planning. I saw how you could bring it together, but it's really been siloed out. Now, understanding this industry as well as I do, because I've been in it for so long, I also know what the challenges of the solopreneur. Talk about you want to be able to have that freedom of time we talked about. Well, that's why people go out into this industry in the first place, whether it's, insurance or financial advisory. A lot of people start out within the captive side of the equation, right?
Yes.
Whether that's captive Banker's Life, whether that's captive, Edward Jones, I still consider quasi-captive, if you will. But what they really want to do is they want to be able to have the freedom to be like, I'm going to my son or daughter's event, whatever that is. And they want to stay individualistic, but they don't know how to do the marketing. They don't know how to do the branding. They don't know how to have the entire ecosystem. So when I first started going down this path, I already knew what needed to be built, and I knew that it didn't exist. So as someone who's been in the wholesale and retail side, that gave me a lot better insight into the necessity of what's really, really needed out there, desperately needed. But where it really started was 23 years ago, 24 years ago, was why I asked myself a question, why, because of a personal experience that happened with me, why do estate plans fail? From the end user's perspective, why do they fail? Before I even built out the entire advisor partner client acquisition kit, as we call it internally, how do I help the households that are out there to be able to eliminate the family fracturing that occurs when estate planning, legacy planning, industry jargon, we call it family succession planning, right? It gets down to more the heart of it, the emotional aspect. It also makes it a little bit more understandable. How do I fix what happened to my wife's family when her grandmother and grandfather passed away? I saw the ripping and the shredding of households that affects firsthand. So I wanted to solve that problem. Why do estate plans fail? So I started doing research and finding out, why do estate plans fail? And it took me years to be able to solve this. That's why I say our competition, if you will, that are out there in the digital estate planning world, I don't really believe, and this is not throwing them under the bus, I really do not believe that something happened to someone that developed that like it happened to me. And I wanted to be able to fix that issue, especially in the most underserved demographic in our industry today, of which our independent insurance agents live, and that's the mass affluent demographic. I wanted to bring to market the solution that can help families now and into the future. And that's why we have developed the most comprehensive estate plan in the marketplace today, of which our Epic advisors tap into, bolt onto, to be able to solve that problem, to help them, this phraseology we have, become the client's hero. You can become the client's hero under very favorable circumstances. It's natural for you to get a chance to write more index annuities, to write more IUL, to write more long-term care planning solutions, right? So it all started with that idea of, how do I solve that problem? Because I truly believe this, Justin, what rips at America today, the fabric of America today, is when you have households that have $1.2 million of investable assets that are underserved, the most underserved demographic, especially when it comes to this subject matter. If you can fix that for them, if you can deliver what we call the 3 E's, educate, enlighten, and empower them, give them the access that they have never had before through that network of insurance agents that we love to help out, right, in the IMO space. That is the differentiator. And that is how I started out in the first place, on fixing the household's solution on why do estate plans fail. And that research took me down rabbit holes that I had never dreamed of in my life. I didn't even know what estate planning was, back in the day, whenever I started seeing this, family members that are fighting with one another, cousins that, Thanksgiving and Christmas and 4th of July are not the same any longer because they don't know these households. in that demographic do not know what they don't know. And I wanted to be able to bring that to the surface. I wanted to make that available to them. And that's exactly, what we do. We built out, I tasked Rosalie last summer with how do we answer the question of how do we train at scale?
Mm.
How do we give the opportunity at scale for advisors? So I tasked her with building out a platform, a training platform that we now call Epic University that enables us to train 20, 200, 2,000 advisors at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I tasked her with that because I needed to be able to have an easy way to get more buy-in from more advisors so that we could accelerate the go-to-market strategies that they buy from us. And the one thing that I learned, if you give a proven track record and a proven process to advisors to run on, they will buy and they will consistently and persistently adopt it over and over. Look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I fully believe in that. So anyway, that's a little bit more tying in specifics on how I got started, how we went down this path, and then how do we solve two challenges simultaneously. Client acquisition, not lead acquisition. I can give you a phone book, give you plenty of leads.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Client acquisition, right? For advisors that then can fix the mass affluent demographic of the problem of having a comprehensive estate plan that is guaranteed, guaranteed to succeed so that you do not fail the beneficiaries that you leave behind. That's what we put together.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. So again, a lot of estate planning software programs, advisors out there that offer estate plans, I guess. But at what point does Epic become involved? So an advisor, if a financial advisor is hearing this and they say, I want to try this out. And if we think of like the first step in the process is, well, you have to get in front of leads. And the last step of the process is you have to close them. Whereas we kind of talked about before, a lot of lead generation programs get involved either at the beginning, middle, or end. You guys are involved from start to finish. So this might be a little repetitive, but at what point does Epic become involved in helping an advisor if they're like, I want to be more part of Epic, I want to do estate planning? At what point in that top of funnel down to the bottom do you guys become involved?
Every step of the way. Like literally every step of the way, from the beginning to the end and beyond, as Rosalie mentioned earlier. It's literally, this is about three things. I set out on this journey to do three things better than anybody else in this industry. Elevate the client experience, create what I call professional contrast or a differentiator, and then competitor-proof your ideal clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Epic was built. That's why we were designed. And that's why, to answer your question, we are there now in the very beginning, top of the funnel, the middle, the very end of it. This is what helps advisors grow their practice, retain clients, but more importantly, and I really want to highlight something that may sound weird. We are in the stranger marketing space. We are able to fill the room. We average triple-digit registrations. And I'm not talking triple-digit registrations to a Ruth Chris Steakhouse. I'm talking triple-digit registrations to libraries, educational venues on this subject matter in the most cost-effective way, right? The ROI is off the charts. But we're probably the only marketing firm in the stranger marketing space right now that's trying to get advisors out of that space. And what I mean by that is we want to multiply their ideal clients, and we give them a track to run on because we also have advanced business development that we can take those top 10 households. I actually ask advisors this. I'll ask the question. I'll go, okay, take the top 10 households you've ever worked with in your life. And I want you to imagine what you could do, what your practice would look like a year from now if that 10 was times 10.
Mm.
What would your practice look like? And I'll just shut up and I'll just wait. Their eyes like, whoosh, right? It's like, oh my goodness, if I could multiply my top 10 households times 10 this time next year, my practice would look unbelievable. It would be unrecognizable what it looked like.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we ultimately are trying to accomplish. We want to get advisors out of stranger marketing and into introduction marketing, right? And we give them a path to be able to do that very thing. We partner with something called $1 Million QB that helps take those successful advisors who've been able to take our go-to-market strategies, get strangers to become clients, right? And then train them on how to multiply those households that will give them inroads into their existing colleagues, families, friends, because we all run in the same circles, right, Justin?
Yes.
Right? As a rule, we run in the same circle.
Yeah. Yeah. So the goal maybe is at the beginning for an advisor to, yes, do the in-person stranger marketing. I like the way you say that, stranger marketing type events. But as an advisor is continuing to be part of the Epic family, that goes down a little bit and they just start working their existing database.
Yeah, and we give them the track to run on there as well.
Yeah.
So like literally it is, I wanted to, and this is, let me just throw this out as a disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
This is not for everybody. I want your audience that's listening. This is not for everybody. And this is what I mean by that. We want to take people who have traditionally been transactional by design, right, wrong, or different. And if anybody understands a transaction has to occur to monetize a relationship, it's this guy. I get it. But we want to take historically transactional insurance producers in this space, and we want to make them transformational, right? And if they adopt our program, if they, with intentionality, the way that we are intentional, if they go through Epic University, not as something that's required of them, but as something that they intentionally want to learn from. If you're going to go out and you're in college, right? And you've got to declare your major.
Mm-hmm.
Are you declaring your major into something that you think you're going to make a lot of money at some point in the future? Or are you declaring your major for something that isn't going to make you any money as a rule, right? As an analogy, right?
Right.
So you're going to become a doctor. You're going to school to become a doctor or an attorney, or you're going to trade school to be a plumber. Well, you don't go through those classes to hurry up and get through it so you're not a specialist. Well, we design Epic University the exact same way. And we articulate this on the front end to advisors. Do not run through this with the intention of, I just got to get through it. This isn't like, I said this just the other day. Insurance companies have a product-specific training that you have to go through to be approved, right?
Yep.
Well, they're all about the same. Is that fair? All index annuities are about the same. There's not a lot of nuances to them. There's not a lot of innovation to them. So a lot of times a new insurance company or a current insurance company will come out with a product, and you got to do the product specific training,
right? Yep.
Where you can sell it to your client. But you kind of hit play, and then you're doing something over here, doing something over there. You're not really listening because you're like, I know it. In fact, my internal wholesaler, who I depend on, already gave me all the salient points.
Right.
I'm just doing what's required of me of the insurance company.
Right.
So now I'll be able to go sell this, product to a prospect that becomes a client. I'm going to go make my 6, 7, 8% commission, whatever it is. Epic University is not that. Epic University is designed to be very much university-minded driven. So when I said it's not for everybody, I mean that. Like, if you're just trying to hurry up and get through it, you'll fail. Guaranteed failure. Do not buy our marketing package from us. Do not become an Epic advisor. You're not a fit. We don't want you. We want those who really care and who want to look like the guy who's got the cape on, the gal who's got the cape on, right? We want you to become your client's hero. And if you go through Epic University with any other intention other than that, we will guarantee failure. I'll share a story with you that I was just told from one of our Epic advisors 3 hours ago. I started talking to this guy. I told him all about all the things that we do. He's part of an IMO. If I said the name of this IMO, you're like, oh yeah, everybody knows that IMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
He comes to us. We tell him everything that we're doing. We're business in a box, right? Actually, one of my Epic advisors earlier today said, one-stop shop business in a box. That's what he said. Or one-stop shop box.
Nice.
Like anyway, I was just like, I love that. That's awesome, Denny. Anyway, so I'm talking to this guy 2 hours ago, and he, unsolicited, says to me, hey, Carter, just so you know, I'm going to go back through Epic University again. That's how important it is. That's how much we let these advisors know this is not just to get through it. This is with intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we built, Epic University was built based off of the last 8 or 9 years of failures and successes of our Epic advisors.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go through it with intentionality, when you come out on the other side, if you thought you were excited before, you're really going to be excited when you're going to recognize really quickly just how comprehensive of a marketing package we put together.
I think to wrap up too, around the question of when do we get involved,
Mm-hmm.
this has been in my mind. It what's nice about Epic system is, like Carter said, an advisor can bolt on to our system. So we can essentially get involved at any point of an advisor's, business model, whether or not they're just starting out or they're an established advisor, because on the estate planning side, we haven't gotten into this yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will, but what we call the outsourced estate planning team. And that is just a team that the advisor plugs into the comprehensive estate plan that Carter mentioned, our estate plan portfolio. So they have that ready to go. They have the team ready to onboard their clients. So we have advisors from, day 2, 3 of joining that say, hey, I've got 3 clients that have asked me about estate planning and I'm ready to get them started. And they can get those clients started immediately, essentially, as soon as they finish Epic University. There's a couple very short, quick onboarding steps that we take with them, and they're ready to onboard clients while they're waiting for their marketing kit to be built and go to market to utilize this as a client acquisition tool as well.
Okay.
Start with the client retention, essentially within 2-3 days of joining.
Yeah, that's cool. So they don't have to wait until the first leads from the marketing kit come in. They can just plug in. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And again, want to stress that you guys are putting butts in seats. Are you doing the presentations, or are you providing the presentation that the advisor can do?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So we learned this. This is part of the 8 or 9 years of tripping over ourselves and trying something out. The Epic advisor today are going to be very well served because we've already learned all the holes in the boat,
Yeah.
so to speak. We fixed them all up, patched it up. Looks like, nice, shiny, and brand new. Sell it at Barrett Jackson. Anyway, we tried doing traveling with our Epic advisor trainer, right? Our development officer who trains it. And what we found is one thing that I came to this conclusion on probably 6 months ago, as far as messaging this properly. It's not about the content at all. It's not about the PowerPoint presentation at all. It's about the connection that you make with the audience. And the reality of the situation is, if you want to have a wildly successful workshop, you have to deliver the message, because you're stranger. These are strangers. Let's not forget about this.
Mm-hmm.
You do not know them. They don't know you. Now, we're very successful because preemptively, ahead of time, before you even get up on stage, we're doing things on the front end that help advisors look reputable, that help them, the strangers almost feel like they do know them a little bit before they even show up. But that's, again, reinforces why, if we're going to market you, you need to present, right? Because that audience, right, wrong, or indifferent, is going to connect with the speaker, right? They're going to connect with whoever's delivering the information. And we learned this again the hard way. We tried having someone, a specialist, who could be able to go out, they could fly out there, they could give the presentation, and then kind of like, okay, well, you won't be talking with me, you won't be meeting with me, you're going to be here, let's get this person up on stage and come back. And we call it doing an intro and an outro. We do that at scale with an on-demand webinar for our Epic advisors without them having to do all that deliverables and everything. But that connection is key. The audience of strangers are going to connect with the specialist, the perceived specialist, right, wrong, or different, again, like I said. So we train exactly how to do exactly what it is that they're going to be presenting. And one of the reasons and the ways that we help to accelerate this is we want every single Epic advisor. You know the old saying, the cobbler's kids have no shoes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, most advisors also don't have their own estate plan.
You're right.
We want them to be their very first client. We want them to go through the exact same process that their clients are going to go through, because that gives them ownership. They're a lot more convicted if they have gone through the process. They can literally feel like, oh yeah, you're going to meet with the onboarding specialist, you're going to meet with the attorney, and they can literally walk the client through, manage the expectations on the front end. well, that's going to secure their client.
Yeah.
So that's the basis of everything that it is that we do. Is we want to train advisors how to deliver what we call the 3 E's: educate, enlighten, and empower. That last word, empower. We know, statistically speaking, that when we do these stranger marketing events, 42% show rate on average, right? Of the 42% that show up, though, 85% of them will request an appointment. Of the 85%, 95% will show for the appointment. And again, these are just averages. Of that 85% that show, 52% of them will become their clients right then and there. Now, once they become your client and once they experience what we call elevating the client experience, that's when you becoming a hero happens without you having to do any heavy lifting whatsoever. You are nothing more than, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I just need any of your listeners listening. We do all the heavy lifting for you. You are simply the relationship manager. We remove all the fears of unauthorized practice of law, right? An attorney is part of every single plan that gets created, customized, right? Not cookie cutter. And every household has a dedicated onboarding specialist now and into the future for the lifetime of that estate plan that is around. So that is, I know it's a long-winded way of answering your question as far as who's delivering the message, but there you go.
No, I love it. So I'm sure there's going to be people wanting to get started. So how do they reach out? What do they do to reach out to get started if they want to be part of Epic and go through the university and be an Epic advisor?
Yeah, well, I'll throw one suggestion out to you. We have multiple IMOs that we've partnered with that are recruiting to this platform. The first thing I would tell you to do, go to your internal wholesaler and ask them if they're a participant of Epic Services Company, right? Because we actually have organizations that do one of two things. They either sponsor you and they'll pay for all that marketing costs up front, or they will reimburse you if you pay for the marketing costs. So that's the first thing that I would suggest. Go to your internal wholesaler, find out if you're a participant in Epic Services Company. If you're not, obviously, you can be able to reach out to us. Well, Rosalie, maybe you have a better idea of what the optimal thing is. I know we'll drop in there my calendar link. This is going to be sent out. You can be able to get on my calendar, do a 15-minute introductory call or whatever. We have all kinds of marketing material that you can learn more about. You can go to our website. You can learn more about all of those things. There's many ways to get in contact with us.
Yeah, I'd say directly, if your contact information is attached to the podcast, that meeting link and or carter@epicservicescompany.com. And then on our LinkedIn page, Epic Services Company, right at the top, there's a learn more button and it walks through the entire Epic system. And there's a few links to Carter's calendar directly there too.
That's cool. All right.
Yeah. In fact, on our LinkedIn, on the Epic LinkedIn where it's learn more, you can literally go through the entire program, everything that's included for the advisor partner client acquisition kit. We give pricing, you can opt in, but normally what happens is, and that's why my calendar is prominently displayed there, book 15 minutes with me. We'll go through a little discovery. We'll find out what your practice looks like right now. We'll determine if we're a good fit for one another.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Anything else that you guys would add? Any questions I didn't ask that you want to mention?
You asked some really great questions, and you pulled out a lot of information out of me. Great backstory. How do we get started? Call to action. It's really, really good. The only thing I might say is to reinforce the fact that I already know, if you're listening, if you're an independent insurance agent right now listening, and if all this stuff sounds too good to be true, the last thing I'll leave you with is this. We have no less than 5 advisors on speed dial that are more than happy to share their personal experience with Epic Services Company and what it's done for them to help them grow their practice. I'm not involved in that meeting. I'm not afraid of what's going to be said in that meeting. It's not scripted. I can either do a group email or a group text, and we have no less than 5 advisors who are more than happy to advocate for what it is that we're doing, because they know that they can't serve all 61 million plus ideal clients that they can't work with, right? So we're trying to help out everybody in the United States. And if an Epic advisor is curious after they meet with me and they want to be able to meet with other successful Epic advisors, I've got a handful of them that are ready to talk with you.
That's powerful.
So,
I've got to jump in because there's one thing that popped out for me, and that was really discussing how estate planning is such a differentiator for advisors, 2026 and beyond. Carter tapped a little bit into the blue ocean opportunity of the underserved market, but when you think about how approximately only 30 to 45% of Americans have an estate plan, about 32 of them have a will. This is something where it's like, okay, you're bringing something new to the conversation. You are differentiating yourself because you're not doing what most advisors are doing when they're asked about estate planning, and that is referring out to an attorney.
That's right. Yeah.
Or they don't have a solution at all, and it's kind of just swept under the rug. But not only is it the differentiator, but it's such a powerful discovery tool for the advisors as well. Just this client going through the estate planning process and then working with our team during the onboarding of those clients, they're going to learn so much about these clients that they never would have learned had they not implemented estate planning into their practice. So yeah, I think just understanding the powerful differentiation that it brings is something that I want every advisor to look into before they would dismiss any type of estate planning solution.
Well, and I don't know what the statistics are like now because I don't follow it as much, but when I was still the chief marketing officer and I followed a lot of like what topics are hot nowadays, estate planning, women in wealth and estate planning were always in 23, 24, 25, 2023, 24, 25. They were always the hot topics.
Yeah.
They right level with each other. But then like Social Security, that was hot maybe back in the 2018, 19, 20. But estate planning is hot.
Right. Our partners that we run the events through say estate planning is their number one event. And we have some insider knowledge knowing that the way we market our events, we're seeing even higher registration rates and conversion rates. But yeah, it's a topic that I would say don't sleep on this topic. And especially wanting to be holistic, or comprehensive. If you're claiming that, estate planning needs to be on your list of services.
I love it.
Yeah, I would argue it needs to be top of the list, but that's just me.
Yeah. I won't argue.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome, you guys. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for being on. Thanks for what you're doing. I love the heart behind it. I love the why behind it. Respect it.
Yeah, well, Justin, we really do appreciate your appreciation for it. When we talked about it, last week or the week before, whatever it was, about coming on to the podcast, I knew that you recognized it pretty quickly, which is why you're like, hold on, I don't want to ask more questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've been able to sniff those kinds out that I like and don't like pretty quickly. So yeah, it didn't take very long at all.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you having us on, and we appreciate you getting this message out, and we love what you're doing. That's why we couldn't wait. It was very synergistic. And I love the idea of beyond the IMO, and I thought, man, what a great conversation we can have because we both embody that whole idea.
Agreed. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Rosalie, thanks for coming on with us today as well.
My pleasure. See you guys around.